Excuse me, sir. I'm just messing with you. Hi, I am Melissa coming to all of you once again from Legends Past and Future with our Health and Wellness Corner. Tonight we have two very special guests. First, I'd like to introduce Coach K. Coach K is coming to us. She's a life coach with over 30 years of experience, a motivational speaker, an author, has worked for the government, has worked with prestigious individuals like pilots, FBI agents, and then we have my amazing husband. Yeah, I forgot about the applause. And we have this amazing doctor in the room, Kent Nadapraya, my husband, my love. I would like to introduce him. He works down at Andrews Air Force Base. And tonight we're going to have a piece on mental I love the applause. We're going to have a piece on mental health and physical health together. But before we dive in and jump in, I would like to get a little bit from each individual. Just introduce yourself, tell us something about yourself, and we're going to just dive in and start talking about how mental health and physical health are connected. So, Coach K, tell us a little bit about yourself, your practice, what you do.
So my motto is wellness from the head down. And I love that because as you and I had previously engaged, people get it confused. Their priorities are a little mixed up. They work on the body before working on the mind. So hence, I am a mindset life coach. So I first focus at the top, start at the top. And then the body will fall in place because whatever the mind believes, the body will always follow. So that is very key. That's a key point to remember when we're working on anything. Always put everything in priority. So it's not the body first, it's the top. It's the head first.
Even though we want that body to be first.
Exactly.
I'm working on a summer body now in the wintertime.
But see, we gotta get that mind right, and it starts in the subconscious mind, because if we don't program that subconscious mind, working on that body all you want is not gonna last, because your conscious mind is gonna lead you right back into the same behaviors that caused you to gain the weight in the first place.
Dang it. So much for them. I'm gonna throw the shade because our CEO Armand, he like all these like candy bars and stuff. So I'm gonna make sure I tell him that when he gets back on. But hi, Kent. I guess it's a professional forum and I shouldn't call you Bay in the forum. But hi, Mr. Nadapraya. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your practice and the multiple things that you do.
Gotcha. Well, obviously, I'm more opposite. I'm less mind. No, I'm kidding. But I'm primary emergency medicine clinically. In that setting, it's a lot of it's just more fast paced. Sometimes you don't even have time to think. You just kind of do because it's very mechanical. But in my other multiple, practices, mostly just telemedicine. But I do focus a lot on just overall physical fitness, right? That's kind of my thing, obviously, and how to really work with people who are busy like me, a regular person that has a family, kids, has a job, sometimes more than one, and how
more than one child, more than one job.
job.
Remember, we live in the same house. Moments of truth here.
Exactly. And then, but just trying to figure, I teach people how to be more efficient. That's all it is. How to be more efficient with their time and how to maintain some level of physical fitness for themselves and work with people that, like I said, don't have a lot of time on their hands, and teach them how to incorporate lifestyle changes in their life to be able to maintain some physical fitness and well-being. Obviously, working with people with obviously being in medicine, a lot of people have some issues, comorbidities, and understanding some of the physical limitations and try to get them back to some type of level of physical fitness that is reasonable and realistic for them. That's all.
Okay. I like that. You brought up the comorbidities part. So I'm going to circle back to that in just a second. But for you, Coach K, just tell me, what does health and wellness look like for you? Coming from life coach, the mindset life coach, what does health and fitness look like for you? And I will say this, I just want to put this disclaimer out here. I know so many times there are a lot of individuals that will kind of get caught up in being afraid to talk about the mental health piece or the mental aspects, because there are usually barriers behind why we refuse to come to someone and talk to them and just get someone to tap in. So without anyone having to give their story, but if you don't mind sharing, what does that look like for you? Health and wellness.
Health and wellness is everything. And like I just said, all roads lead back to the mindset. It's how we view the world, the lens through which we view our world. It starts at the top, you know. It starts with our thoughts, how we see ourselves, again, how we see the world around us, and how we view our world. So, again, you can be in great physical shape, but if your mind is not together, the entire package will not be together. And that's what we want to focus on. We want to focus on that muscle memory, that thought process, and limiting beliefs, and all of those things we want to tackle in order for us to be whole individuals, because we can't be whole individuals just focusing on one part of the body, because something is going to be lacking. So we need to strengthen our mindset, because that is the key to everything.
Okay, and I hear you say strengthen your mindset.
Yes.
So for some people, and I'll just say you're going to have different individuals viewing and or listening. What kind of recommendations or what tools would you put in someone's basket or suggest for them to help starting with the mind, strengthening the mindset? Because we don't know what that looks like for most people. And sometimes people don't even know what that looks like for them. So what does that look like?
Absolutely. So there are a couple of things. One is recognizing that all thoughts are not your own. So I would say at least like 90% of the thoughts that we have, they're based on environments. So they're not necessarily your thoughts. Okay. And two, we need to stop adopting truths that do not belong to us. And that's what contributes to our limiting belief system. We adopt people's opinions. We adopt other people's version of who they think we should be. We adopt that as our truth. We need to stop doing that. We need to learn how to counteract thoughts that go against who we believe and say we are. And how we do that, it's just like putting anything else into practice. So sometimes that may look like affirmations. Sometimes it may look like getting in that mirror and staring yourself down, and you find something beautiful, handsome, or what have you about yourself, and you hone in on that. You grab that bull by the horn, and that's what you look at every day. This is who I am, and you stand firm in who you are. I'm not the opinion of Karen. I am not the opinion of John. I am Kamilla. I am. And then you finish your I am affirmations. So those are some of the things that we need to do to start strengthening our mindset.
I love it. And Kent, just from your perspective, what does health and wellness look like for you? Because I know, because I live with you, I know that you are extremely busy, extremely busy. And I've watched you over the years really adopt finding what works for you. And it's been amazing to watch that. I know I don't always acknowledge it, and I love to acknowledge in public. Listen, my husband works about 500 jobs. We don't even know who we are sometimes. We're passing. But to see how he dives in and stays on top of his fitness game just to keep himself going, can you just talk to the viewers about what that looks like for you and how you adopted your fitness pattern and your fitness goals?
Yeah, I think Coach K hit it on my mind. All right, I think
You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear
Yes,
me? Okay,
yes.
perfect. So I think Coach K definitely hit on the money with the mindset, right? I think it really does start with that. because you have to be accountable, right? Your health is kind of just like everything else, and I see a lot of people who have, unfortunately, not the mindset that should be there. They either say, oh, I need an hour to do this, to work out, and if it's not an hour, they're not going to do it, right? Or if they drive to a gym and they only have 15 minutes, then it's not worth their time, right? But I'm like, that's a poor mindset. I know that I would drive 2 hours just to see my daughter do 5 minutes in a play, and it was worth every 5 minutes, even though it was 2 hours, because it's important, right? And you would do that over and over and over again. Why would you not do that for yourself just to be able to be healthy and fit and stay on top of things, People have a tendency not to assume that everything has to be perfectly regimented, but your life's not that way. I think you've seen me work out at 11 o'clock at night, even 12 midnight, because
that's that whole story we're going to go into about the sleep patterns.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously my lifestyle is a little different and stuff, but I mean, overall, it's all about finding time. And I think people make, it's a mindset. So in the sense that you have to it's also being efficient too. I mean, it's two aspects. You can have all the thought processes and, in place, but you also have to be efficient with your time as well, and that's a whole nother piece I talk about, and how to be efficient with the actual time you're doing, with working out wise. But I think it does, like she said, start with the mindset, being accountable for actually getting there and showing up at the gym or show whatever you're gonna do. Other than that, I mean, there's a lot of other pieces to it that I talk about with fitness. It's also being, like I said, when I talk about the efficiency piece, people have this kind of misnomer that they have to do something for an hour or 45 minutes.
So you're saying I don't need an hour in the gym?
I just think that a lot of people create an hour block and they fill it up with stuff, right?
Okay.
I think it's one way to do it. You shouldn't say, all right, I got 45 minutes, and we're just going to do something. No. Be focused on it. All right, this is what I'm going to focus on. And if it takes me 20 minutes, it takes me 20 minutes, and that's okay.
Okay.
A lot of people spend a lot of time in the gym, but I don't think it's really necessary. A lot of times it's better to break into smaller pieces too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like studying. I think I talked to Amon about this. Like, who crams and really studies and knows everything for a test? No one does, right? But if you study in what they call prodomos, right? 25 minutes. It's a little bell curve, right? You're more efficient at the beginning and more efficient at the end. You kind of got wasted space in the middle, So if you shorten up those time blocks, you're going to have more efficiency in your workout. So if you have smaller, shorter workouts, maybe just break them with 2 15 minutes time blocks in a day. You find 15 minutes anytime. Mm-hmm. I spent 15 minutes on a toilet before, So I mean, you can find 15 minutes anywhere in life. People scroll on their phone.
20 years in, no filter. It's okay.
And stuff. So I mean, I think that it's about finding pieces of time in your life, which it does exist, and people just don't realize it because they don't have the mindset to think about that, right? I think this is what it is. So, but I think, like I said, I think Coach can hit on the money. I think it starts with mindset first, and if you don't have that, nothing's really gonna fall into place.
Okay.
So to sum that up, I would say 2 words: consistency and truth. Right. So we have
explain that a little bit. Explain that.
So, just piggybacking off of what he said, if I were to surmise that very quickly, it would be consistency and truth. One, we must be consistent in everything. In order to change a pattern, there has to be, I hope I didn't say pattern because I cannot stand that. Pattern.
I'll play it back for you later.
Don't do that. It's about repetition, right? So when we want to get better at something, we repeat positive processes, right? And then the truth part is being honest with ourselves. So we can't go into the world showing up as somebody else or trying to accomplish something because somebody else wants us to do it. We have to be honest with ourselves. And that just brought me to something. One of my favorite quotes is by the late Dr. Miles Monroe. And he said once, if your culture and your environment doesn't teach you the truth, then you will believe a lie even about yourself. And that lie will become the philosophy through which you lead other people. So the truth starts with you. Be honest. You know, if you don't feel like working out today, you don't feel like working out today. But I encourage you to search your mind. What is the reason? Why do I not feel like working out today? You know, what's the emotion that I'm going through? And look, y'all, don't y'all rag on me. I told y'all in the beginning, my cat broke my glasses, so I'm struggling over here.
That's okay. We're in survival mode.
So we have to be honest with ourselves. You know, we have to address the emotions that we're going through. Be honest. You know, if you don't feel like working out today because you're feeling angry or you're feeling sad, identify that emotion and address it, and then move on. Do not suppress it. Always be true to yourself. You have to be true to yourself first before you can show up honest and whole to the world before anyone else.
Yeah. And I like that. And I want to come back to you, Kent, since she's saying that she's talking about the emotional piece of not feeling like you want to work out. So I want to tie that into the efficiency piece, because I've watched you, and you know, not everybody has the opportunity to watch somebody work 50 jobs and still make time for their health and their prioritize their health, right? So when you talk about efficiency, if you had to talk to the masses about, all right, I only have 15 minutes, 20 minutes in my day, what would that workout look like? What would you recommend to people, or what has worked for you? Because I know what works for you may not work for someone else, but just helping them set their mind on, how can I get in and get the best workout, and what does that kind of look like? What would you recommend? Because I've seen you in the arena go from, you've lost weight, you may have gained weight, you put on the muscle mass, you know the science behind how it works. So what would you recommend for folks?
Yeah, so I mean, I think if we look at science, right? You know, we can take pick take 220 minus your age, that's your maximum heart rate, right? Times that by say 80%, that would be where your heart rate would want to be at a very high intensity area, right? That would be tough, but if you do that for 15 minutes, pick whatever exercise you want to do, you know, that keeps your heart rate at that level for as long as possible in that 15 minutes.
So I
You can
can't
burn
turn
a
the
decent amount
remote
of
control
calories,
on the
right?
TV.
You know,
People on blacklist.
you
Like,
can clap your hands what you want to do. I don't care.
okay.
But you want to put some gospel on, get a Holy Ghost, and just clap around for everyone.
Don't go there. Keep it moving.
You know, no, but I think that overall wise, it really depends on the person. But in the end of it all, it's really about heart rate and cardiovascular fitness, right? So if you, obviously 80% is a lot. You know, most people probably want to do maybe 60%, which is perfectly fine. So 60% of your maximum heart rate. Choose an exercise that you find that will keep your heart rate at that level for as long as a period of time during the 15-20 minute time span. You're more likely to burn some calories and provide the cardiovascular fitness that you kind of need at that type of setting. Now, you also have other pieces too. I mean, you got steady state cardio, which is more like in zone 2, which is kind of a heart rate where you can have a conversation, but that's kind of like more jogging and stuff, which is more the aerobic level, which is also important too. But if you're looking at the mainstream population that really doesn't have time to go on an hour run or an hour cardio or do some type of aerobic, and they're trying to improve their also physical fitness and conditioning in that type of setting of the anaerobic aspect, then simple science is just 220 minus your age, times that by, be conservative, 60%, and find a few exercises that you can do in sequence that will keep your heart rate at that level.
Okay. And since you brought that up, so let me, because I know we have viewers out here, and a lot of that's going to sound very Greek to them if they're very new to the game and working out, but not even touching on the piece, the science behind it. I want to talk about the medical piece, right? we're looking at it from a holistic approach. Mental health and physical health are interconnected always. No matter how we slice it, they're always going to be interconnected. So talking to a medical professional is going to be very essential whenever you start any type of health routine, and looking at health from a more of a holistic approach, being the mental and the physical being connected. What would you recommend or tell your patients or the viewers that's listening? Any thoughts, recommendations on guidance for someone just coming into the game when they're going to see a medical provider, and whether they have a goal of losing weight, getting their numbers down? And I'm going to come back to you, Kay, on the mental health piece, but what would you talk to your patients about? Because sometimes I don't know that people realize that there are comorbidities that factor into the mental health connecting to the physical health. So when you're seeing patients in certain settings, what do you talk to them about, or what would you recommend when they're saying, okay, look, doc, I need to start this new program. I need to drop 92,000 pounds. I'm just being facetious.
Not 92,000.
No, right.
Well, I mean, there's obviously a lot of factors. So, I mean, obviously, one, I first asked them, hey, when's the last time you see a doctor or got any blood work or basic set of a physical evaluation? You know, obviously, you look at things like blood pressure. You want to get some blood work to get some baseline labs to see what the kidney functions are.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, lipids and things like that. That's cholesterol that is going to take up. But you want to just see how they are metabolically as well. Obviously, you take a factor the BMI and weight. Any physical ailments and conditions, you don't want them to have injuries either, too, as well. If they're already a diabetic, you know, all right, how long have you had diabetes? Is well controlled. You got to be concerned they have diabetic neuropathy. If they're running and doing things on their feet, they'll have they may have issues with their feet and cause injuries and sores and things like that. When we do, I mean, I'm not a primary care provider, but, you know, when I talk to people, I usually ask them basic family history risk factors too. Cardiovascular risk factors is a big one too as well. Any early heart disease, anyone has sudden cardiac death, have they ever had any fainting episodes and this or that? So these are
any type of what episodes? I'm sorry.
Fainting, passing out.
Okay, gotcha.
There's no concerns that they may have an abnormal heart rhythm. You know, they should get an EKG before they start any type of training. There are certain types of dysrhythmias out there that we always get concerned about. You know, obviously, if you're a gentleman who's of larger size, they've had hypertension, you can have cardiomyopathy, which is the large hearts. There's conditions called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is, you know, again, a large heart. That's where you see even athletes pass away on the court because they have underlying conditions they didn't miss. You know, and there's a lot of science behind that. I think it's too much for this forum, though. But I mean, pretty much, I think overall wise, getting a cardiovascular risk assessment with a cardiologist, or at least through a primary care doctor who can perform that, and some basic lab work before they engage in any rigorous activities. Now, they can still exercise. There's no reason why they can't. You know, exercise shown that even they have insulin, they have like pre-diabetes, it improves their insulin sensitivity. So as they have a better reduction in their fasting glucose levels and A1Cs. So and exercise improves things called endothelial dysfunction, which is as we get older, those blood vessels, you know, they get old, right? They're not working as well, and you get a lot more inflammation. If you have pain, even some people actually exercise actually helps. You know, exercise helps with the reducing inflammation. Of course, eating right is the most important thing too, I would say. I think as a viewer that put something in here about food-wise, that's probably one like the number one things you have to do. A lot of people, nutrition is a big piece, and I usually recommend people either talk to a dietitian or I talk to them about their diet. Now we have to think about cultural aspects too as well. You know, if I'm of a Polynesian Asian descent, or someone is of Hispanic descent, you know, they may have a different type of food and diet that, you know, obviously you listen to it, hear it, it's like, wow, that's a little bit high in carbs and fat and and inflammation as well. So those are things that you have to talk to them about as well.
Okay. And I'm gonna come back to the question in the form in just a second, but for you, Coach K, I do have a question. in order to get people to try to improve their emotional well-being, what would you tell them as far as, or what would you recommend for them connecting into that emotional piece so that they can start positively impacting their physical health?
So it's kind of aligning with what Kim was just talking about. Basically, so what I heard Kip saying is that you want to identify the goal first. So that's the same thing with me. You know, when you come to me and we're talking about if you want to address you're having you need help with emotional stability. So we want to establish a goal. What is your goal? There were so many things that Kent was talking about. My brain was running like 500 miles a minute, and I just wanted to just chime in there before I lost everything. But the goal, I just want to just back up a little bit. So the goal would be, whether it's physical or mental fitness, is to establish a goal. What is your goal? And then you move forward from there, devising a plan. And I definitely want to speak to this piece very quickly. Kent, you talked about cultural aspects. So, pardon the mispronunciation of this word, but a lot of times when we go to doctors, they'll tell you, they want to know your family history, your mother's history, your dad's history, because they'll tell you things are genetic, hereditary, and that's not an absolute truth, because there's this thing called epigenetics, where it's not that a specific gene was passed down to you, it was a specific environment. So naturally, if your mom had diabetes and her eating habits were passed down to you, then naturally you're more susceptible to becoming or having type 1 diabetes because of the environment. And so we need to stop adopting everything as Bible, as absolute truth. We need to take charge and do a little bit more research ourselves, because this is where the mindset plays into all of this. You go to the doctor, you hear a negative report, it affects you emotionally, and you immediately adopt this as your truth. You don't go get a second opinion. Most people don't anyway. I can't say all, but a lot of people, they're skeptical about getting not skeptical, but they don't go and get a second or third opinion. They just hear this bad news and they're like, oh my God, it's me. I'm dying tomorrow because the doctor says I have this illness. Mm-hmm. But if we train our mindset and things like that, hey, this could be bad, but there are other things that I can do. And we want to start researching those things so that we can build up emotional stability, so that we can be strong enough to fight through wherever that diagnosis is, and stop accepting it as, a lot of people leave this earth based on what someone else has told them. Yeah. They embodied it. And once we embody something, it becomes a part of us. And we sleep, eat, and breathe that thing, and we can't see past it until that thing begins to control us. And that's how many people leave this earth.
Well said. Well said. And I do want to address this question to kind of tie it back in. That's in the box, in the form, and I probably need my glasses on. So it's saying some people believe that if you provide your body with proper nutrition, that fitness is only good for 10% of your lifestyle. How do you feel about that? So I'm going to pose that question to you, Kent, because I know that one size doesn't fit all. And there are a lot of fads out here. And when I say fads, I'm talking about crazy eating trends. Let me jump on the bandwagon. Today I'm gonna do the lemonade diet. Tomorrow I'm gonna detox and fast. I'm gonna do this. Listen, I really like food, so I can't be doing none of it. So what do you think about that? Like, tell me. And me and Kay just had lunch the other day. She know My eyes, as my grandmother would say, got bigger than my belly because I had like 4 different dishes on the table, and I didn't even know where to start. But what would you say to that about the nutrition piece, the 10%, and the belief behind that? Because, I think a lot of times people go into a calorie deficit and just truly don't know the science behind how to go into a calorie deficit on a healthy level. And then that's a whole nother show when people start going into eating disorders and everything like that. So what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, nutrition is extremely important, obviously. That's probably the very top important thing that you have to think about. And this is what leads to a lot of obesity in the US as well. Poor diets, overeating, we
Candy bars in your drawer. I'm just throwing that out.
Come on. Gotcha. It is. I mean, it's also lack of education too, right? I mean, you go to, everyone's lifestyle is different, obviously. I understand culturally, Coach K mentioned that. I've mentioned that too as well. But nutrition is that the problem is that people they don't really know how to count the calories. And you really can't too, because you really have to weigh your food in order to really know what calories how many calories you're eating, right? You have to be able to weigh it and things, and no one's going to do that, So, to top of that, I think the person overall I can't really say what a percentage number is, to be honest with you, because, if you look at nutrition overall wise, what is proper nutrition, right? Proper nutrition for what? Is it to be healthy? That's fine. People intermittent fast, and it's shown that that works perfectly fine too for them. And they're getting decent nutrition and they're healthy and stuff. So everyone's proper nutrition is going to be different for everyone based on their activity level, fitness, and what they do on a regular basis. If you are a construction worker and you're active all the time, yeah, you're going to need a little more calories, But then again, I see very overweight construction workers too, and they're doing the same work as everyone else. Why is that? The caloric intake is way higher, than someone else's. I work in the ER. We're very active. We're running all over the place, but there's different types of body habits is there too. We could be on our feet for a long time too. So it's all about, and I can see people snacking on things, high caloric snacks, soft drinks, things like that. So it's proper nutrition overall wise is really, in a nutshell, caloric intake. That's probably the most important thing you gotta look at. When it comes to the macros, that's another piece as well. I look forward for this, but overall wise, proper nutrition really is, what is your current lifestyle? What's your activity level like? And trying to figure out, all right, if my activity level is a little more sedentary than someone else's, then you need to know that your caloric intake has to be less in that day. Overall, if your activity level is higher, then you can eat a little more. In regards to the fitness is only 10% of your lifestyle, again, that's also depending on what your lifestyle is too, right? I work, as you know, one of my other jobs working on call for nursing homes, right? What's the number one reason for ending up in a nursing home? Losing the ability to squat. If you lose the ability to squat, you can't get off a commode. You can't get off a seat, right? You can't get up. So you lose the ability to squat.
His infatuation with the commode is cracking me up.
Yeah.
My husband has this thing about the toilet.
What are we all sitting in the chair, right? Our glutes, our hamstring, which is the biggest muscle group in our legs, and our core is not activated. It's the most important pieces of our body that allows us to walk and get around, And if we're so sedentary all the time, we drive for long hours and stuff, that now we got to make up that difference. You multiply that years and years and years. It's like training our body to be weak. We train our body to be weak every day by sitting down, driving and stuff. We need to reverse that by being active, by reversing that aspect. So what we got to do, we got to train our body to be active to prevent that atrophy in those muscles over a period of time. And the way you do that, you have to be active. If your body's not active on a regular basis, then hence why that fitness piece comes in. So that 10% of fitness in your lifestyle really depends on your lifestyle too as well.
I'm getting excited over here.
Oh, well, go ahead. No, chime in. I won't even ask you my next question. I'm gonna let you chime in. This is an open forum when people put questions out there, but I like to expound upon things so that this is how we all learn. We come to a meeting table and this is how we learn.
So I do not profess to be the oracle of wisdom. Everything that you were just said, oh my God, is all roads lead back to the top. Everything starts here. And it starts in the mindset, because when you were talking about poor diets equal impure thoughts. If your thoughts are pure, if you think clean, you eat clean. That's a
So
fact.
explain that. Explain that.
So it all goes back to how you see yourself. So impure thought could be how you see yourself. If you don't value yourself, that's an impure thought. So there's no way you're going to eat clean, because you don't even value yourself enough to eat clean, to take the time to pick out the rosemary, which is good for the brain, the berries that's good for the brain. You're not going to take your time to go through, hey, you know what? I'm not going to put garbage in my body, because I see myself more valuable than that. So you talk about the core of the body, the muscle and all of that. The core of the body is the brain, the mind, how we see things, how we think about things. Because if we focus on the mind first, then we will want to do things like strengthening our muscles so that we can sit down, get up and down in a chair, be able to get off the
And off the
off
toilet.
the toilet.
Uh-huh.
About the commode. Makes it a little more, sounds a little better.
That's why I say, like, our priorities here are so messed up. We focus on flattery a lot. Things that are fleeting, but the very thing that we need to keep us going, because if that mind is not together, that body is going to fall apart. I don't care how much you focus on it. So let's get our priorities together. Let's focus on building that strong mindset. Let's focus on that, because it trickles down to the body. It trickles down to us saying, you know what, today I'm going to work on my legs. I'm going to work on eating a little bit better. I'm going to look in the mirror and say, hey, you know what, I only get one of you, and I appreciate you, and I'm going to do the very best that I can to take care of you. That doesn't mean that we don't have vices or what have you. We all have something that we need to work on,
Mm-hmm.
but it's how we see ourselves overall that matters. And it starts here. It starts here. Everything starts here.
And I like the way you put that. So just to kind of expand upon that, that leads me to ask, to talk about some daily habits from the mindset that kind of spill over into the physical piece, right? Because I can't tell you how many times, based on what it is that I do in a second profession, whether it's coaching, whether it's yoga, whatever, how many people come in and they are completely tapped out and drained. So, just from the mindset piece, could you talk about a couple of daily habits that you have found that work for people over the years, that kind of help them tap into themselves so that they can be the best version of themselves and get back on their feet and start being physical?
So it depends on where they are in life. It depends on the lens that they see themselves through. So all of that matters. That is very key. It all depends on how you see yourself. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's primary. So if you don't see yourself as a worthy, valuable individual, we got to work on that. We have to dig deep. We have to understand, where did I get this? Where did I adopt this from? At what point did I accept this limiting belief as my truth? Sometimes you may have to go back into the files. Did it come from my mom? Did it come from my dad? Did it come from somebody who belittled me? And that's the way that I saw myself. And I carried that into my adulthood, because oftentimes things, it's just like raising your child. I used to tell my son, whatever that's whatever doesn't get corrected in your childhood, pardon me, I need to charge my phone since my laptop didn't want to work for me. But whatever doesn't get corrected in your childhood, it will carry over into your adulthood. So we need to
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to the types of things we are allowing into our environment, the types of speeches we are allowing to get into us. And that's why it's imperative that we keep our circle close. You know, we want to walk around and be the queen bee, be the it, be the life of the party, you know, types of things. But everybody doesn't belong in your immediate circle. And sometimes for your own emotional stability, you have to revisit that circle frequently and find out, because in that circle is a dot, and that is your heart, that is your bull's eye. And so you need to go back and revisit that circle. Who has direct access to my heart who doesn't belong there? That person belongs on the outside of that perimeter. They don't deserve direct access to my heart because it affects me mentally, emotionally. These are things that we need to look at. That's called doing a deep dive into ourselves. And then we need to practice being alone. Many people are afraid of being by themselves. People out all the time. I love being by myself because I learn so much about myself because it's quiet and I can hear myself think. I don't hear the outside distractions, the outside noises telling me you can't, you should, this, that, and the third. I get to sit with myself and my God, and I get to listen, I get to hear, I get to develop plans. You know, I get to peel back the layers of that onion. And many people, they don't know who they are. I want to say this very quickly. The average person that you meet, when you ask them who they are, they tell you what it is that they do instead. And that is because they have yet to come into their true identity of who they are as a person. So they always identify who they are with what it is that they do.
Okay. I love that. And I'm going to tie that piece into fitness. And I'm going to bring that question back to you, Kent. So Coach K is talking about alone versus being in a group and kind of identifying and tapping into who you are. So when I look at it from a fitness perspective, I know that you've done a little bit of both. You mostly do solo working out simply because of your schedule, right? And I know that I'm more into the group thing only because I'm teaching from a perspective. But if you had to look at it from a fitness standpoint, just your thoughts, wild thoughts out there. What would you think is better for what group of people, alone versus group fitness? And how do you tap into that piece? Because you're going to have people that have their roadblocks, period. I don't know if I want to work out by myself because I don't know what to do, or I don't want to get into a group and people are judging me. And I know that it's all a mindset piece. However, driving it home to the fitness piece, what would you say on those two pieces? Because you've done both and you've trained individuals from both spectrums, whether it's larger army groups or smaller, one-on-one groups where you have clients coming into the personal gym. So talk about that piece a little bit so people can get an idea of where they can start so that they're not afraid to start.
Well, I think it should definitely start, individually, right? I mean, I think it's better that way, only because then you can kind of see what type of limitations you have. But also, I think you have to be able to learn how to train by yourself. Because if you need, I think groups are great, and 100% groups, recommend groups too as well. I think people go into groups because they get some emotional drive, the word motivation. But I actually hate the word motivation. I'll tell you why in a little bit. But they get like the motivation to do things and stuff. And the reason why I don't like motivation is because then you need an emotional feeling to do something that's so necessary for yourself in life. Do I need motivation to wake up in the middle of the night to feed my kid? No. If she's crying. So it's like things that are like it's a bad thing to have to do something for yourself. So I think if you could do things individually, there's no need. You can do things in groups, which is fine. You can feed off each other. It may be energizing, of course, but I think you will want to start by yourself because you have to have like you said, the mindset and be able to do things on your own by yourself to be
getting to know who you are.
Exactly. You know, and if we talk about mental health, I think mental health should be a big piece as well, because I think mental health, I guess, training your mental health is very important. We talk about training fitness in our body, but training mental health has to be first, because you know, feelings of depression, anxiety, stress, fear, those are all normal things, right? It becomes it becomes a disorder when it affects aspects of your life. Hence PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorder, depressive disorder, right? So just like any other thing in life, blood pressure, diabetes, we should be doing preventive health for mental health first, right? So how do you do that? You have to be on top of it now before it gets to the disorder, you know. And things where you do that, how you do that? I mean, everyone's different, right? You can talk to someone, you can find some self-help books, you can see a mental health specialist, you know. But I think preventive health for mental health is so key, not these days now more than any time, because of just how social media is, you know, how lifestyle is. You know, Coach K talks about, you know, it's important that people listen to things and they then take that as that's who they are, you know. And a lot of people don't, you know, they let people say things to them and, you know, gets them down, whatever you want to call it and stuff. But I think overall wise, people don't have the same resiliencies that they did before, you know, and it's because they haven't been able to train their mental health well, you know. And I think it requires that, because if you don't have that, then you can definitely allow a lot of emotions detract you from things that you should be doing. And I think that's a big detraction in physical fitness. A lot of obesity, a lot of other types of physical ailments, to include hypertension, irritable bowel disorder, all this stuff are all actually emotional constructs. You know, pain. Pain is like the biggest thing that your mental well-being plays a factor into. Because remember, pain is a perception, right? So it is something that occurs, and when you have a weaker mindset and a poor perception of things, you're more likely to experience pain, right? And you're more likely to stop doing something, not continuing it, because it feels unfair for you, you know, when it could be positive for you, you know. So
Right. I love that. I love that. Thank you for that. And you know, and I've actually read studies that when it comes to lifespan, when it comes to mindset, mental health, and how it's tied into physical health, you know, these chronic illnesses that we have can shorten our lifespan by 10 to 15 years, but it's starting with that mental health piece first. So just in a quick snapshot, what do you think of that, Kent? And then I have a couple of other questions, because I know we're getting a couple of really close to our time, but what do you think of that piece?
so lifespan, absolutely. I mean, I think that overall wise, when you look at stress levels, surrounding yourself with negative people, that causes more stress. You know, it leads to poor sleep, right? And that poor sleep is a big factor in your health. It'll lead to emotional eating, poor eating. It'll lead to lack of, because when your mind is constantly drained, you're gonna have low, right? You know, spending time with family, you know, being there for yourself. You're gonna be tired all the time because you're so mentally drained. You know, and a lot of times, and then people use that as an excuse, right, to not do something, you know. So I think that, you know, emotional, your mental health, well-being, stress, and all those things that you allow to get you down has a big factor into your lifespan, because it's it's a detraction from what you should be doing from a health standpoint, you know. And overall wise, it can lead to a lot of other types of ailments too. You know, I wouldn't say that's a direct effect on, you know, blood pressure per se, but it can be, you know, and stuff. It can be direct effect on to levels of pain, and like I said, sleep patterns, energy levels. You know, can it change your testosterone hormone levels? It possibly can. I don't think there's any randomized control studies or perfect, you know, studies to show that. But, you know, from a you know, anecdotal case study report, if you look at people and come to you and they're like, yeah, I have this and this is what's going on in my life, you know, you can probably put a cause and effect. All right, you have this level of stress, all this stuff going on. This could be playing a factor into your health. You know, I can't say yay or nay, but we got to fix both, you know?
Right. Love it. Yeah, I love it. And so for both of you, starting with you, Coach K, over the years, how has your perspective of mental and or physical health changed over the years? And then I want you to give us a quick blast on what your self-care routine looks like, because for some people, they don't have that, and just give individuals ideals. But those two questions, and then I want to pose it to you, Kent, before we close out.
Okay, so my routine is diligence.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Diligence. I must be a part of my daily routine is being diligent. So I am diligent every day in digging more into who I am because, like I always tell people, I am my primary health care physician. None of us should have a primary health care physician.
Oh, I need mine, girl. My back be
No,
hurting.
no, we're not. No, let me tell you what I mean by that. Your physician should always be your secondary care physician because no one is going to care for you the way that you care for self. Even your primary care physician doesn't know you the way that you know you. You know why you respond a certain way. You know how you think. You know more about yourself than your primary care physician does. So when you go to he or she, what are you doing? You're informing them. They're not informing you, they're diagnosing symptoms. So you provide them with the information for them to diagnose you. So you know yourself better than they do. So this is why I'm saying you must be diligent. And so I'm always on a constant search to better myself. What foods can I take to help me, with my memory? If I notice, like, sometimes I find myself, I'm a little more forgetful than other days. And then I have to backtrack, like, what did I eat? Was there something? I tend to chart things. So it helps me keep a record of my behaviors, right? Why I'm experiencing certain things. And I think that that's very important that we do. And primarily because, again, I sound like a broken record. It all starts with a thought. And how you see yourself, this is something that I work very hard on. How you see yourself is how you show up to people, and people will always treat you accordingly. So I look in that mirror, and even if I'm having like a bad hair day, I'm like, I find something good about myself, to say about myself. Hey, well, your hair may not be laid down to the side the way that you want it, but hey, you know what? It's still looking good. You still got that curl thing. I find something positive about myself every day, and it helps me to maintain emotional stability. The other thing is, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I'm always honest with what I'm feeling. If I'm angry, I don't care if it's over the top. If I'm emotional, I try to pinpoint where did that emotion come from. So I address that emotion, whether it's sadness, I try to pinpoint it and I address it. And it may look like I want to cry, I'll say, you know what? I'm going to give you 15 minutes to grieve because your emotions are not going to dominate you today.
Right.
You are going to dominate them. So I allow myself the 15 minutes to cry, to get it out. Sometimes I may not even know why I'm feeling emotional, but I still need to address it. Hey, I'm emotional today. I don't know why. I can't pinpoint why. But you know what? I'm going to cry for 15 minutes. I'm not going to wallow in the house all day in sadness. I'm going to cry and get it out and move on. And so these are things that I do every single day. And I'm a reader.
I love it. I love it. And then before we get kicked out of the room for you, can you just tell us, as far as physical health, what about that? What's your perspective on that, and how has it changed for you over the years?
For me, I mean, overall, like she talks about things you go by and stuff. I always talk about being necessary accountable, right? You can be conveniently accountable for things, right? But if it's convenient for you, I'm going to do it, but you got to be necessary accountable, right? Situations not be convenient for you, but there are things that you still have to do, all right? And I think that we have to play that into our lifestyle, especially health, both mental health and physical health. We have to be accountable for things that have to be done, eating right, getting up and trying to do something for yourself, whether it be exercising, taking a walk, reading. I don't have to worry about the hair thing, because that's shaved my head. So, or you get a spouse like my beautiful wife, and she does everything for me. That's easier too.
On that note, we're about to get cut out of this show.
But no.
But thank you. All jokes aside, but thank you both. And I just like to bring a point home that both of you said. Coach K, you mentioned charting, and for a lot of people that may be a rudimentary tactic because we have IA and all this other stuff that you can type into, but charting behaviors can help you tap into your mental fitness and your physical fitness. If you look at the behaviors you have, you might see what's driving your behaviors and stopping you from getting where you need to where you need to go in the physical world with your body. So with that, Kent, Coach K, I want to thank you both for being on the podcast tonight. I know we can go a little bit farther on this, and if I have questions that filter in, I'll reach out to both of you. And thank you. I am honored and blessed to have both of you sit on tonight and be my guests.
Yes, thank you. And very quickly, I must say, and close the door to unnecessary distractions.
That's it. Yeah. You closed that door upstairs, didn't you, Kent? Them dogs came in there.
That's okay.
We all need to do that. Close the door to unnecessary distractions.
Absolutely. Both of you have an amazing night.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Bye, guys.